In this video, I will talk about the complex process on how I created this game-ready version of Chun-Li. So there's a lot of exciting stuff to cover, so let's dive into it. So the original concept came from Pinterest. I found this AI version of Chun-Li, where she seems to have, I don't know, like Thanos's gauntlets on both hands without the Infinity Stones. So already I had to change some stuff. And then in general, her outfit is a mix and mash of stuff. I didn't even think it was Chun-Li at first. Kind of looks like some stuff from Captain America as well. So the AI is all over the place. Regardless, I still love the idea, so I went with it. It was also titled American Chun-Li, so, I created this low detailed sculpt. I know it has 1.5 million triangles, but still, in terms of a portfolio piece, it's nowhere near the detail it needs to have, right? After the initial pass, I didn't quite feel like it was Chun-Li anymore. I know some of the things I changed was the color palette. I brought back these stripes in her suit, as well as these logos that she has on her nostalgia outfit. And that's the other thing. Chun-Li's default outfit is this one, where she has, the little flaps, the white boots, and the puffy shoulders and whatnot with the bracelets. I went with the nostalgia outfit, which is this one, where she's wearing the sneakers with the leggings and the sleeveless top, and I made my own version of it. So already, the way the concept looks, it had to have the bodysuit, almost like a superhero version of Chun-Li. So knowing all of that, I made a PureF board with a bunch of reference, which I highly recommend you do as well when you're creating your, portfolio pieces or your characters. So, some artworks of her original design. These ones are from the game. There's some stuff that's fan made. Then I scoured the internet for some concept art of Chun-Li and other Street Fighter characters. And you'll notice most of these stuff are AI. Some of these I really liked. For instance, let's see, these ones, these are all AI generated, but like some of the stuff, like the details and whatnot, they're inaccurate. But then if, for instance, with this one, if we zoom in, it goes down to the stitching and there's like a whole lot of wrinkles and whatnot. This is pretty cool, so despite it being AI, I use whatever I can use. This one by far was the most complete in terms of the face and the makeup, and she has like the eyeliner, all that stuff, and the hair. So I like this one as well. The shoes, I looked up the brand of the shoes that they use for Chun-Li, and it's this one, Onitsuka Tiger, unless I butchered that name, but the yellow black design right here. So I brought that back in the final design, especially the stripes and the toe guard, the soles. Some of the stuff like the gloves I replaced with MMA gloves. That was just a preference, which in the end they turned out really great. And for the cracked leather, because I knew they were going to be like worn out, I used these boxing gloves that I found online. And then like quality wise, look at existing art on ArtStation, right? Browse like art from your favorite video games or games that you would like to make art for. And for instance, I went with Spider-Man. Like I said, the initial character was going to be more of like a superhero. And some of the materials here, you'll see this shoulder guard with a clear coat and the metallic material underneath. I got heavily inspired by this piece. And as well as like looking at all the separate materials, there's a lot going on here. For the pose, I had one idea over here where she has her leg raised in a very, Chun-Li way. And then a very rough photo bash. I know that. Look at that neck. All right. Replace the shoes, all that stuff. So this was just a, rough concept. Like I'm going with, sort of like head that looks like that. Let's hop in ZBrush for a second. So here is the first version of Chun-Li brought in ZBrush. You'll notice at this stage it was still like generally the same. I did add some of the, lines and whatnot on her bodysuit, where I would later add the stitches, but it was very much in the concepting phase at this point. Although the face was detailed a bit, but yeah, I did not at all like the lips and whatnot. This one already, a lot of stuff that changed. For one, the hair, but also the face. The face itself is turned down a bit. And I removed her shoes and I added these temporary feet. You'll notice the face will change a lot during the sculpting process, but even after the fact. So yeah, and this was the first version of the MMA gloves. And yeah, I wasn't really happy with it because there's no logic behind it. And that's the other thing. Use logic. Like, does the design language make sense? Where would these gloves be attached? Like, how would she even wear it? right? Like, is it glued onto her hand? Like, is it stitched? All right, now we're talking. Look at that. We already have some color going on in this. So you notice I have several versions saved. I do recommend you save in increments and whatnot. You'll notice some of the design language here made it to the final cut. The shoes I actually modeled in Blender and then brought it back in ZBrush for additional detailing. And you notice there's no lacing right now, and it's just one shoe as well, because I would just mirror them over. So the gloves in this version, this time around, there's also a part on the palm, so it's finally like full circle, you see. Some creasing as well, like you see the leather is creasing now. Added a whole lot of stripes and whatnot. The shoulder pads were separated. The face is already like looking closer to finish. And you notice I redid the face, the lips, all of that. When I thought I was done, I redid just the face though, completely from scratch. Here is the version that was redone essentially. And the lips have way more detail, you notice. And it's crazy. I probably did a poor job texturing the lips, but honestly, I should have detailed the lips even more, because you have to remember this model, all this detail would be baked down, or rather exported. That's the other thing that I learned. So look at this. The pores make sense. They're not stretched, because it's UV unwrapped and everything. There's details, wrinkles. Look at those wrinkles. Chun-Li is stressing out, y'all. I'm joking. But yeah, the lips, very wrinkly, because the skin is essentially different. So yeah, I guess let me show you the final part. This was the final version that I brought in Blender. Let's see if I can zoom in on those gloves. Added a little bit more detail, more wrinkles and whatnot, but generally I was happy with this. So after the sculpt was done, I brought everything back in Blender, because it was time to do the most fun part that we all like, Retopology. Yay, it is so much fun. Okay, yeah, like here's the high sculpt. So here you go, the total amount with the head and the gloves and just one glove and one shoe, the total amount, everything was sitting around 100 million triangles. I did decimate everything before exporting it, and yeah, right now this is not a gray color, this is the wireframe, you see. But you'll notice how like it's very decimated. It no longer follows any topology flow, if there ever was any. I grabbed this, and again, like with the gloves and the hand and the shoes, you only notice there's only one, because it is brought over to the other side with the mirror tool. So the retopo, let's look at that for a second, shall we? I think I still went a little overboard. This could have been even more low poly, but then again, I gave myself a nice little topology budget here, because like I said, I figured I'm gonna make a character that would be fit for a AAA game, which means you can bump up the triangle count. Because there's always the question, like, what should I bake and what should I model? I would say thanks to my professional experience, I've figured out, pretty much when to bake versus when to model. And the trick, my friends, is all in the silhouette. And I know, some of you guys might say, well, that's obvious. Well, listen, it wasn't obvious to me. Okay, I had to figure this stuff out myself. So yeah, that's as much for the, retopology part. All these pieces are separate too, by the way. And yeah, that's that. Let's go into the baking process. All right, so there we go in Marmoset tool bag, my baking tool of choice, because I think it's amazing and it handles separate objects really well. Because look at that, there's a lot of separate objects here, and baking them out just works. Okay, it just really works. Like, look, this is the cage. So this is how a Marmoset tool bag bakes. It has a cage, and you can make it bigger or smaller, or use a custom cage, which was some of the stuff I had to do. And you can also paint the cage, make it bigger, make it smaller. And so yeah, using separate objects will help get a cleaner bake in general. And with this information, we can hop in Substance Painter. So let's do that. So let's focus on the bodysuit first, because the bodysuit comprises of a few details here. First of all, you'll notice this mesh layer. There wasn't always a mesh layer here. It used to be leather. Back in the days of the dinosaurs. No, not that long ago, but it used to be leather. Okay, and then this is why, like, it's just a lot of testing. Okay, so I'm gonna disable everything here for a second. I might enable some stuff that was disabled before by accident, but just so you know. So first, the color blue, super important. I'm not even kidding. This is like her color, right? Goes with the eyes. Okay, maybe not, but whatever. Shiny material here. This isn't really doing much other than just for the base color, you see. So it breaks up the blue a little bit. It's very subtle. I added the stitching at the very last stage of texturing, but it adds a lot. And I did use anchor points. So it basically means you use the stitch brush or any brush, you give it an anchor point, give it a name, and you can reference this anchor point over and over again. So for instance, you can add thickness and depth and whatever, or change the color without having to change this layer anymore. So see, there's a lot of stitching everywhere. So at this stage, it looked really like, you know, those very tight, like jerseys or whatever, which I liked a lot. But yeah, if you zoom in, it's just plain right now, but we need to add a texture to it. We need to add information here, right? Because the way light will bounce off of this thing right now, it will not look good, I promise you. So, a fabric material. Look at that. Grandma came by and knitted us a whole bodysuit. I don't think I actually used this. Yeah, this is what I used. Prime material. So, very subtle. So, you notice I've been experimenting. Like, I did use this at some point to see if it would work, but then again, with a material like this, would it wrinkle like this? Probably not. Again, look at reference. It doesn't, because if this is like a wool fabric, it would be thicker first of all, and then the folds wouldn't fall like that. So it's very uncanny. So initially I wanted to go for a leather, you know, suit. This doesn't make sense though, and also it makes like the whole suit is like stuck onto her body. It's almost like a motorcycle suit. But then again, motorcycle suits, like with MotoGP and whatnot, they're not this tight. And also this doesn't make sense, especially with the breasts. It wouldn't be vacuum sealed like this. This crease would be way more gradual because it's thick material. So this was difficult. This was difficult for sure, because I really liked it. I really liked the way it looked, and then I had to just say goodbye to the material and we had to part ways. But listen, sometimes you have to make sacrifices and tell yourself, you know, you have to bite the bullet. So gone was the leather, gone. Then the shields I was talking about, the shields from Spider-Man. So go to Spider-Man. It's not Spider-Man, there's Spider-Man. These right here, I like them a lot. You know, the clear coat, and there's, in this one it's clean, but I make mine a little bit dirty and worn. And then we get to the weathering stage, because this is all looking nice and all, but just scratch it up a little bit. She's getting into fights. Initial pass, again, just the color, scratching it up a little bit, but that does a lot. Second layer, here I'm using one of the maps. So you'll see this is the initial weathering, and then on top of that I got the metal edge wear. But if I remove all of this, you'll notice this is what it looks like straight off the bat when you drag the smart mask on top of the model. Then I removed a lot of it, contrasted it, and removed even more. So it's very subtle, because it's also like, you know, it's carving into the mesh, or in the normals rather. And, you know, you want to be subtle with that. And then a dirt layer, very subtle. It's mostly in the crotch area. Now, that's the bodysuit. You know, got all this nice detail. Let's go to the secondary, which is the gloves and the, you know, a lot of stuff here. So let's go to these gloves and let's remove everything. Start from scratch. So there you go, one mesh with all the detailed stuff on it from the bake. And on top of that, I add the color first. And this color already got, you know, I removed some of the bits in the front for the weathering. I might have done this after the fact and sharpened it a bit, because, you know, the color gives away. So imagine this was painted on top. Then the leather. And this is just a grunge texture. Then the stitching. This really brings everything together. So let me show you. Substance has these stitch brushes for you. And if you're on a newer version of Substance, it even has a curve. But I actually just painted them using the lazy mouse. Painted them on very carefully, you know, wherever. And I used reference where it makes sense to stitch. And then we got the decal. So I painted out this logo of, you know, Chun-Li. It's not our official logo, but it's one of the logos on our suit, as well as our name, Chun-Li, and brought them in, added some leather crack on top of it as well to break it up, and then the weathering itself. This is a lot, and this is what brings it together, I think. So let's look at the layers here. First, we're just painting the edges overall, like where it makes sense, especially like around the fingers, some of the edges here. Then another metal edge wear. That's what it looks like. I just need some of the cracks, you know, so I just paint away a lot of it. I got another layer specifically on the front. This one is really just digging in the material. You'll notice it's also on the height map. And then a final one for like micro details. So, you know, we got 4 layers here with an additional one. So a 5th one for the strap here. And that's the gloves. See? Now the shoes went through a similar process. So first of all, paint the color, and I paint the, you know, the zipper. And then I start with the material. So first leather, pretty much for the entire upper mesh. Then suede on that front bit. Stitches, oh, again, the same way that I did the gloves. And, you know, some of the folds, here you go. I chipped away some of the paint. And then it was time to weather it again. And yeah, that's the shoes. Finally, I'll go over the face. So let's have a look. This is essentially the layer underneath the skin. Add all this detail, the purples and whatnot. On top of that, I got the dermis, so the skin layer. So you see like all these blotches and whatnot on the skin. That's all from this. So this was all in the base color. Notice I didn't even paint the roughness or the specular just yet because I did those separately. So I got the specular map. It has the values completely separately right there. And then one for the roughness as well. That looks completely different. And then this makeup layer, which looks weird like this, but it's essentially a mask layer. So there's different masks here at play. If I just solo them like this, you'll notice. And this way I could like set up the makeup in Blender. Speaking of, let's hop in Blender. So here we are in Blender, and here is the texture node. So it's a little bit of a mess here, but you know, I got the makeup, the normals, displacement, all that stuff set up. And this is also like a little bit outdated as well. Let me fix her hair real quick, which looks very similar to the Street Fighter 6 version of Chun-Li. And you know, I made some of the changes here on her jaw and chin, the ears, and made the lips a little bit smaller. The deadline. Initially, I meant to finish this project in 1 month, and it did end up being about 2 months. And of course, you know, a lot of stuff happened in that time, like, but I still don't see that as an excuse. It just, I kind of went on and off with some stuff. I should have stayed in the loop. So let's see how the next one goes. I'm gonna definitely try to, you know, finish that one in a month. The hair. In essence, you start out, well, I would draw out the hair flow first. So that's what I did over here. You notice I drew out lines on the scalp where the bangs would be in the hairline and all that stuff. I definitely recommend you do this because it makes your life easier. And just, yeah, look at a lot of reference. That's what I did as well on how hair flow works and where hair flows from. And then, yeah, let's see. The very base layer beneath everything is just a duplicate of the scalp. And I just mapped the hair textures on top of it. So these are just the hair cards mapped on top of it. It looks very rough, but it just makes sure, you know, to cover some of the bald spots. And then I got the blue layer on top. So that's this one, the blue layer, which is just flat cards. At this stage, it just looks very basic. But this, you know, it's the base, what can I say? So you notice the hair flow, just, I respect the hair flow here. And I made one part, mirrored it over to the other side and randomized the hairline. Then I got the bangs. Then we get the volume layer. The left side here, and this will add a lot of volume, as you notice. You know, you compare this side to that side as well for the other side and the bangs like that. Layer 3 are the flyaways. Let's actually enable the buns for a second because the flyaways are also on the buns. So you notice it has a little bit of a color difference as well. I set that up in the shaders, you can do that. This already adds a lot more to the hair, right? Like without the flyaways, it's a little boring, but also the hairline looks really bad. Like here. With the flyaways, it breaks up how uniform it looks, makes it just look a little bit better. And then, you know, another layer on baby hairs in the back, for instance. See? And more flyaways, so covered the hairlines here. And yeah, that's the final hair piece. And then the rig. Actually, I grabbed this rig from the Lumi character model. I put a link to that video in the description as well. It's the Overwatch girl. So I grabbed that rig, modified it, gave her fingers because Lumi was wearing the gloves. And yeah, also gave her a hair rig. Oh, the hair isn't rigged in this one. Well, yeah, the body has the jiggle physics, all that stuff. So this is the final version, you know, and she's in a pose. Kind of like this angle with the lighting, even though it's like she's all silhouetted right now. But this was meant for the shoes. Actually, it's one of the rendered shots. You can see the camera right there. But let's go with the proper. There you go. Now we got the right one. I gave her 2 poses. So this is one of the poses where, you know, she's looking fancy. Then I got this one, you know, on her tippy toes, one leg up, ready to strike and beat her enemies. And I pose this camera like this, and this is actually the main render, the first render on the ArtStation page for this character. I got the wind blowing right now, which looks kind of okay. I didn't end up using that because it looked kind of weird. But what I can show you here, this rig, I last minute created this eye rig. Because, I don't know, I'm really into rigging nowadays. So, you know, like check this out. You got this little eye rig. And the way it works, there's see, so there's a bone for the upper eyelids as well as the lower eyelids. And for the eyebrows as well. And they essentially like, they have constraints on them. So they move on certain axes only, because I recorded, you know, with my phone I recorded my face looking left and right, up and down, and I noticed when you look left and right, your upper eyelids, they don't move with the eye, like it doesn't move left and right like it's stuck to your eyeball. It just moves when you look up and down, and that's when I realized I have to like lock some of the axes here because it looked weird in the beginning and I just didn't understand why. So let me just say I learned a lot from this project, even though like I didn't meet my original deadline. I did finish her and happy about that, first of all. But it's also like I'm really happy I went through with the hair cards rather than using XGen or the hair particles, because I've been meaning to learn how to use hair cards, and for the next projects I will just still maintain using this and get better at it, because for one, it's real time, and for eevee especially, like the way it like catches the light and the way it renders, I think it looks so good. And the next character I will actually live stream the whole process, so it'll be, you know, a lot of live streams I guess, and then I will, you know, when I make the video it will be a mashup of all those recorded streams essentially to show you how I went about different things and whatnot. So pretty much it for this video. So yeah, thank you for watching and see you in the next one.